Buddy, it's Friday, so let's get the weekend started off early. And I'm coming to you from Huachuca City, Arizona. See you soon. Okay, here I am back again so soon, and I just want to show you two lovely people. And here they are. One is Billy Thompson. Say hi, Billy.
How you doing, everybody?
Good.
Hello.
Everybody loves Billy. And Jackie Barnard.
Hi, folks.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know who I am staying with on my little trip here. And this lovely lady here just gave me my new home, so thank you very much, Billy.
Please take it.
And let's get on to the video. Everybody, this is my new friend Casey. Casey loves her alfalfa. Okay, so I thought I'd give you a little desert backdrop to look at. And behind me we've got some beautiful mountains. I love Arizona. I love the desert Southwest. It's very pretty here. I want to tell you a story because it's going to go along with something that is a very critical aspect of the great high priest that we've been talking about so much in webcasts and in some of my videos recently. So I'm going to get to that later, but here's the story. A few years ago, I worked for a company, and we had a girl who worked there who was a psychology major, and she found a test that they had taken in class very interesting, so she gave all of my coworkers the test, and I was the last one of them. There were about 50 coworkers there, and here's what the test was. There were three simple questions, and the last question was, imagine yourself waking up in a room, and the room has walls, a ceiling, and a floor, no windows, and no door. Now, think of 3 words to describe how you're feeling. Well, I gave them her my 3-word answers, and there was another coworker there with him. He was really curious what my answers would be after he took the test and after everybody else took the test, because his answer was the same as everybody else there, almost. And so I want you guys to do the same thing. I want you to imagine yourself waking up in a room where there's no doors and no windows, nothing in the room, it's just you. And what are 3 words that describe what you're thinking and feeling? And now I'm going to go to the great high priest, but I will come back to this. Alright, so let's get back to the great high priest. For those of you who have not heard our chats either in the videos or on the Powercasts of late, or even in the great high priest series, the high priest spoken of in Hebrews, Hebrews speaks of the great high priest, and that being Jesus. Now, he was the great high priest, and he specified great, and the reason he's great is because he's perfect. Well, we need to get to the critical reason why he's perfect, and to do that, he actually showed and demonstrated that the high priest, the traditions of the high priest were in the Jewish traditions. They were under the law, and they were ceremonial traditions of cleansings and checking for blemishes on the sacrifices. The sacrifices had to fulfill the standards of the law to be considered ceremonial clean under the law, and the priests had to go through cleansings to be considered ceremonially clean under the law, so that they could perform the sacrifice. And the reason this is important is because the priest and the sacrifice were given for all the people. And see, God did not look on the people for their acceptance. He looked on the sacrifice and the high priest. If he accepted them, the people were accepted. If he didn't, they needed another high priest to come in very quickly. Here's the problem, though. According to Hebrews, the people had no surety. They feared death. They feared the death of the high priest because, according to Hebrews, he was imperfect, and the high priest died. And when the high priest died, they needed a new high priest again. And what they were looking for was a great high priest to come, a Messiah who would end all of this and finally give them assurance. They feared death. They had no surety because death was always in their future. In other words, they had no surety of their own fate. Their fate was always unknown until they could get a perfect sacrifice and a perfect high priest. They feared death. They never feared hell. They were never told about hell. The word that's sometimes translated as hell in the English Bible is only because of the translators. It's not right. That word has always meant the grave. It always meant death in the grave. That's what the Jews always feared because they never knew their fate. They never had assurance of their fate. They feared death. Jesus was the great high priest. He was the perfect high priest because, according to Hebrews, he was a surety of a better covenant. A covenant that would last forever. Why? Because he lives forever. He's the great high priest who offers a perfect sacrifice. See, the sacrifice that the high priests in the Jewish traditions offered, that God accepted, it only covered their sin and never took it away, and it only covered it for a year. This was for all the people. It didn't matter what the people offered. It didn't matter what the people did or did not do. It didn't even matter if the people believed. People were covered or not covered for a year by that imperfect high priest, and it was repeated. And if he died, they had to do it all over again. They were waiting for the day when it would never happen again. They were waiting for a new covenant. Jesus was the perfect sacrifice, and his sacrifice was perfect because it didn't just cover sin, it took it away. And Jesus was the perfect high priest who offered that perfect sacrifice. And God accepts everybody that sacrifice was offered for, regardless of what they've ever done. Not because he looks at them, but because he looks at the sacrifice which was perfect, which was Jesus' blood. And they look at the high priest himself, who is perfect, who lives forever. Because of that, everybody is perfect in the eyes of God. Everyone is accepted and imputed with his perfection, his righteousness, his holiness. Everyone who that blood was shed for receives that acceptance, receives that imputation. They are credited with that, whether they believe or not, whether they do anything for it or not. They are just charged with it. They are judged with it. That's what's perfect. Jesus is a surety that takes away the fear of death, the unknown of their own fate. You never have to worry about your fate. Your fate is not unknown because of Jesus Christ. Now, let's get back to the story of the room. Okay, so I asked you to think of 3 words when you imagined yourself waking up in a room, an empty room with no doors and no windows, and what you were feeling realizing that you woke up there. I don't know what your 3 words were. I'll tell you what most of the responses were of my fellow employees who took the test before I did, or were asked the question before I did. They said, number 1, they were startled. Number 2, they were insecure. And number 3, they were scared. My answer? Well, let's not get to my answer just yet. So, when I gave my answer, the girl who asked me the question and the other employee who was curious what I had to say, their mouths dropped at the 3-word answer. They were astonished. It wasn't like anything anybody else had answered. Now you got to remember where I was working. Most of them were evangelical Christians, and a lot of them were Seventh-day Adventists. The oddball out was actually the girl answering. She was a Mormon. Or the girl who was asking the question to everybody, who was the psych student. She was a Mormon. They were astonished and I asked them why they were so astonished, and she explained to me what that question represented. That question represented how people feel about death, specifically how they feel about their own imminent death. My answer, my 3 words, were surprised, curious, and ready. The gospel does an amazing thing. When you have a surety, that it's not up to you, your fate is not contingent upon what you did or did not do, or what you believed or did not believe in this life. We have a surety from God that we can rest, we can be curious about life, we can enjoy life, and even when we get startled sometimes, we can be ready. That's the good news. We have a great high priest, folks. Nothing you do or don't do, nothing you believe or don't believe, can undo what he believes and what he did. See, the gospel is not about what you believe about God or what your opinion is about God. The gospel is about God's opinion and belief about you. And because of Jesus being perfect and what he did, and because of his perfect sacrifice, God has deemed everyone accepted. Alright everybody, so from Billy's Barnyard in Huachuca City, Arizona, I want you to have a great weekend, have a good week, and we'll see you on Tuesday, probably from Florida. So, remember, one more thing, like and subscribe, or dislike, comment, tell me you liked it, tell me you hated it, tell me, like and dislike, and come on back.